Calling the meeting to order. Attendance, please.
Supervisor Holdridge.
Here.
Councilmember Artisana.
Here.
Councilmember Becker.
Here.
Councilmember Courtney.
Here.
Councilmember Dysinger.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Is there any public comment for this meeting? Anything online? All right, so we'll move on. Resolution to approve the quote from State Bid that allocates $41,503 of Parkland funds for the Black Sports Lights 120-277 V trunnion with glare shielding. This would be new LED lights with shielding attached to replace the lights at Chester Commons Field, which has been long sought after. And I want to apologize to the Chester community that we haven't been able to get this done before now. But you know, we were trying our best, and our park department was trying their best. But you know, and unfortunately, government moves slow sometimes, and we were handicapped by the process. But this should fix it. Along with, we will be looking into a fix for the actual box that goes along with the electrical system out there with the lights. But this is just for the lights. So does anybody have any questions or debate points on this?
So just doing the lights, Supervisor, at $41,000, the current box, even, and I was out there with you, the current box can somewhat function right now.
The current box, the current box will function with these lights. It won't be something that we would want to do for long, but you know, being that by the time these lights come in, it's about a 4 to 6 week delivery time. The sports season will be over, so there really shouldn't be too much of a use for these lights. Plus, you know, we are still looking into labor, so we still need to find somebody to actually install the lights. So, you know, by the time this is all said and done, we're probably not going to even use the lights with the current box. We will have the new box by next year.
Do it all at one shot.
Yeah, well, yeah, our Parks Department is looking into both the labor and the box replacement at the same time.
Yeah, I would expect that since these are LED lights, it's going to take a lot less electricity.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
it shouldn't overburden that box.
Yeah, and I'm happy to see the shielding on there to help protect the neighbors from, you know, light trespasses. Larry's been pushing with our current code.
Yep, absolutely. So any other questions or debate points?
No.
Seeing none, I'd like to motion to approve the resolution as stated.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Holdridge.
Aye.
Councilmember Artisana.
Aye.
Councilmember Becker.
Aye.
Councilmember Courtney.
Aye.
Councilmember Dysinger.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All right. Last week, we had approved a contract with Jefferson Solutions for the 2023 GASB 75 audit. This is to go along with our 2023 audit. But the contract, actually, I misspoke, is for 3 years at $32.50 each year. This is still less expensive than what the other option that we had in front of us at the time, like I explained to you last week. So I just wanted to get this on here to correct the mistake and make sure we lock into the 3-year deal with them to, you know, keep that low cost and fulfill the contract that they had offered to us. Does anybody have any questions or debate points on this?
I'm good with it.
All right. I'd like to motion to accept the resolution as written with Jefferson Solutions.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
So there was a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Holdridge.
Aye.
Councilmember Artisana.
Aye.
Councilmember Becker.
Aye.
Councilmember Courtney.
Aye.
Councilmember Dysinger.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. I'll now move on to the tentative budget. Public presentation. So everybody's been presented with the 2025 tentative budget. It's been uploaded to the town website. This is just the cover page. This is who we are. This is what the town is made up of. And this is the tentative budget presentation. So this is the budget that's coming from me, the town supervisor, along with my accounting department, after I had met with all of the town departments, the department heads, along with the liaisons. I invited the town board liaisons to those meetings. This is the budget that I had come up with for next year. The tentative budget is made directly from the town supervisor. Any changes that are voted on by a majority of the town board will then create the preliminary budget. The preliminary budget will have a public hearing on that towards the end of the month or the beginning of next month. That's to be determined. There will be more budget workshops to allow us to, talk about any potential changes. But I already know on next week's agenda, there are some changes that will be on the agenda that have been brought forth by some of the town board members. So let's get into it. So here are my personal goals for 2025. I made a commitment to try to be truthful as much as possible with the public, even when that truth is inconvenient. This is a tough financial year, and for a myriad of reasons, which we will get into later on into the presentation. But these are my goals to try to deal with that financial year. We have to really hunker down and see what works for us, what is cost efficient, and that's basically it. All those up there and what I've kind of said is reflected in the budget. I want to be lean and responsible and try to maintain the same, while also trying to maintain the same amount of services that our residents want to see. Here are some challenges that we are facing here in the town of Chester. The first two up there you will see are something that are out of our control. This is like a macroeconomic issue that is plaguing the nation. This is kind of things that trickle down to us here on the local level that we have to deal with, that we have to reckon with. The CPI and the inflation rates obviously have went up in the previous years, and here we are looking at 2025. We have to now deal with that. If you go further down here in the middle, over $1 million of fund balance was appropriated last year for this year's budget, the 2024 budget. So that is something that we have to deal with as well. We have to make up for that kind of shortfall in this year's upcoming budget. We have previous liabilities that have been unaccounted for. I had spoken about earlier in this year, the public well knows and the town board well knows. Just as an example, the liability insurance, the unaccounted liability insurance that we had to budget another $100,000 or so.
Hopefully we can reduce that this year.
Well, yeah. So we are working on it. So one thing that was truthful was that the insurance companies take a while to get the quotes out to municipalities. They do not work on our schedule. We kind of work on their schedule. So in my tentative budget, I had included the same number that we ultimately ended up paying for unallocated liability insurance, which is a high number. I'm hoping by the time, before November 20th, we are able to get a much more accurate quotes from our potential insurance brokers to be able to input that and change it in the preliminary budget. I've been following up with the insurance brokers that I'm working with right now. Reese Group is one of them. I can't remember the name of the other one.
Marshall and Sterling.
Marshall and Sterling. Thank you, Bob. I'm following up with them basically weekly, bi-weekly, asking, what's the word?
Will we have a better handle before we finish our preliminary budget on what our current fund balance might be, or is there no fund balance really available to us?
Oh, that is,
further in.
we have a handle on it.
Okay.
It's further in, and you can always ask the comptroller. But yeah, we have a handle on exactly how much we have. But I don't plan to use any fund balance to pay for our liability insurance this year, hopefully. It's not in my budget, at least. So we are waiting for the number on insurance next year.
Tom, just to kind of piggyback on Brandon's comment, at the last meeting I had with Marshall and Sterling, they are hopeful with all the lost runs and up current year-to-date lost runs that they hopefully can get us a better number.
Awesome.
They seem pretty positive, so,
That would be good.
yes.
We should be at a high risk.
Hopefully.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that dropped off that's, but, like I said, year-to-date, they have all that information, so.
Very good.
Do I
Thank
see a
you.
comment over there, Michelle?
No.
Okay. So the $1 million of fund balance you'll see later on in the presentation was spread out among multiple accounts. We'll go into that later on. And the rest here that you see is basically self-explanatory. A lot of revenues were overestimated. A lot of expenses were underestimated in the 2024 budget and further back. We have increasing costs every year for basically every residential service that we provide. We had a lot of other good things going on, like expanding the town's accounting chart of accounts and, the pressures that come with appropriations to all of the various accounts in town. So here is a pretty good graph of, a chart of the property tax levy breakdown. This is basically how our money is being spent. It gives a good idea how it's being divvied up throughout the town. The general fund here, 38%, includes costs that span both town and village, which is general. And then the part town fund is exactly what it sounds like. It includes costs that only involve the town.
How will we punch in in the future, the library and the fire district?
So that does not go towards our property, our cap. Yes.
Okay.
So that doesn't.
It's a separate tax.
Yes. It's going to be. It's
We bill
included,
for it, but it's separate.
right. It's included in our budget.
Yeah.
But it's not. We have no control over it, and it does not go towards our tax cap.
Okay, very good.
And here is a further breakdown of specifically the general fund, the A fund, the part town fund, the B fund, and then the highway. Everything here you see is pretty self-explanatory. You have salaries, payroll burdens are taxes and benefits that we pay, that taxpayers pay. And really the only thing here, and this is where the challenge comes in with making a budget, is that the green sections, the operating sections here in all these budgets are really the only parts of the budget that we can really play with. Everything else here is usually fixed, especially salaries, because of contracts like the union contracts that we have with our white collar, our police, our highway, and so on. And operating costs is kind of like your equipment purchases and project funds and so on. Everything else that you see is more or less fixed, with the exception of sometimes professional services. Obviously, this year, the town board and I really made an effort to cut back on the cost of professional services, in terms of our engineering firm, our labor attorney, our town attorney. I think we did a really good job with that.
If I can ask a question, and the controller's sitting here, so maybe between the both might know. So year to date, do we have a number, what looks like what we saved, or a projection for the end of the year?
We will.
It's going to look like that.
We will. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could, just, it would be good to know, because I think it'd be important for the public to realize what the savings was with some of the changes that were made.
At the end of this budget season, I do plan to do a breakdown of, and in the end of this year, of just how much, how much we did as a board to save the public money. I think it's gonna be very important.
Any reason why we don't have the police department breakdown up there?
The police is included in the the general and part town funds, and there's actually further charts later on in the presentation that goes over the police. That includes the police in there, but I will definitely get to that.
Yeah, I really like to see that separated out, because that's a large number.
Okay. All right, so moving on. Any comments, Michelle? No. This is a slide we just kind of snuck in here. It's just to give the public and the town board an idea of where we sit in terms of the the leadership board here of our property taxes in Orange County. We're 11th in property taxes. The average property taxes $334,700. So this slide is the calculation that goes into the levy cap. You'll see the most important numbers here are towards the kind of bottom. The total of our, the amount to be raised for 2025 is $13,454,871. That's opposed to the levy cap for this year, which is about $11.2 million. Obviously, I will get into exactly why it is so much higher than our cap is this year. But like I said earlier, we were facing a lot of challenges, especially with the fund balance. But of course, the ambulance tax district is going to play a huge role in that $2.2 million difference right there. But yeah, and then lower down, you'll see the tax rates per, the assessed value per tax rates. People can use this to kind of gauge how much their taxes are going to go up next year. They are certainly, what's it called? They absolutely can call the town assessor's office to figure out what their specific tax rate is. I couldn't give a general number in terms of what an increase will be across the board because people live in different areas of the town. You live in different special districts. You either live in the A fund or the B fund, what have you, to put it in more simple terms.
Each district has its own tax rate.
Yep. You got water districts, sewer districts, what have you. Things to note, your water districts right there, that is going down significantly, 207,000. That has a lot to do with better budgeting this year. Our town comptroller and deputy comptroller really went to bat on terms of the budgeting there, along with, I'm sure Heidi had something to do with helping out, and the water department had something to do with helping out, figure out how to better budget for our water department. But also the user rates are going to play a significant role in bringing down people's taxes. The user rates going up so we can switch to user rates. And I will go further into that once we get to the water department, the water districts slide that we have in this thing. The drainage districts are also going down, as you can see, to zero, because we are actually going to be using some fund balance to pay for next year's costs for the drainage districts. This fund balance was collected from years of not budgeting the taxes that were raised in these drainage districts. So we aren't using anybody else's money. We are using the money that was raised in these drainage districts in previous years that were never budgeted for to now, pay back and, buy down the budget here in the drainage districts. So there will be nothing assessed next year. And then the next slide is the levy cap calculation. There's not much to talk about here. This is just basically all the math and accounting that goes into calculating our tax cap for this year, which again is $11.3 million. So here's the fund balance that you were asking about, Tom. As you can see, leading up to 2022, we had a very large, dramatic increase in our fund balances. They were steadily going up, it looked like. And then just about after 2022 and 2023 and 2024, you will see significant dips. This is what I was talking about before. The previous two budgets, the budget officer had used a lot of our fund balance. Last year alone, they used $1 million of fund balance to balance the budget, which, great for the residents for those years, kept taxes lower than they could have been. Now, as you can see where we're at, we have about $1 million of fund balance in the B fund, our park town, and we have about a little over 600, but probably a little less now than 600 fund balance in the A fund. So it's, in my opinion, you should not be using fund balance to balance your budget that significantly. You should only be trying to use it to work around the edges, but really they're meant to be, reserve accounts that you save up for a rainy day when you absolutely need it. God forbid, like we needed it for the highway garage the other year, 5 years ago or so. That's what you really want your reserve, your fund balances for. And then this year, we're not left with as healthy as fund balance accounts as we could have been if they had not been so overly used in the previous years. Excuse me. Go
Excuse
ahead.
me, I have a question.
Yeah.
Now, just, and probably the controller probably can help as well with this. Okay. You're here, so. So my understanding is when you have fund balance, you're only allowed a certain percent of what your yearly budget is. Is that accurate?
Not entirely.
So, put it in layman terms for me. My understanding, you were allowed 13% of your total budget.
The layman's terms is you will never get a straight answer from the comptroller's office about how much fund balance you should have.
The state comptroller.
Because the state comptroller basically says it really is up to the discretion of the town board, and you want to maintain what they call a healthy fund balance. Now, what is considered a healthy fund balance is really up to the discretion of the town board, is what they say. As a general rule, what you would like to do, just like you would do with your personal finances, you would like to have at least 3 to 6 months of expenses, or the ability to pay expenses with the amount of cash that you have on hand, right? So you want to at least be able to cover a run rate of anywhere between 3 and 6 months. So the idea being that you want to maintain a nice healthy fund balance, that if for some reason you don't have revenues coming in, or you have a significant drop in revenue, you still have the ability to pay your bills for a 3 to 6 month period of time.
Because there is a formula, and I know we're not in this position, but obviously if the pendulum was swung the other way and we had too much fund balance, obviously we'd have to reduce taxes, because there is a formula of some sort. I have 13%, and I couldn't put my hand on a Bible to say that, but I think when I first got involved, I think 13% was around the number. Now that might be the first few months of what you're saying to have on hand. I don't.
It really all depends. I mean, I've heard 15%. As I said, you go to any of the comptroller training and you ask them, they will give you the same answer I just gave you. It really just depends on your funds and your expenses and what you're doing.
So having said all that, based on the 2025 budget, how will that affect the fund balance?
For what am I allocating?
Well,
Yeah. So, and because of all the reasons that I kind of laid out, I did not want to use anywhere near the amount of fund balance that was used in previous years.
We want to replenish that fund balance, right?
Yes.
So my
well-
question is, will we be increasing the fund balance based on this preliminary budget?
If we use everything in that budget, there's no way of knowing. You're
So,
supposed to just budget. what
The
you-
reason why taxes are going to be going up this year, at least, so we are a certain percentage over the tax cap, right? We are about $2.2 million over the tax cap. Half of that is coming from the ambulance district. The other, a little bit less than half, I would say, like 45% of which is coming from the over $1 million in fund balance that was budgeted for 2024. We now have to budget accordingly to make up for all of that money that was spent in fund balance. We are not over budgeting. We are not overtaxing to make back reserves. We are going to be budgeting to make up for those lost reserves. So we are going to be plugging in taxes to those numbers that were otherwise used by fund balance last year.
I think what Larry's looking to do also.
Yes, to
I'm on
build
the
it
same-
back up.
On the same plateau here is we have all these districts, water districts, sewer districts, and we want to make sure we can accumulate some type of fund balance in those for emergency situations.
And that's something that I think personally we can look to do
Yeah.
as much as possible in years to come.
Especially our
year-
sewer districts, because they've been left defunct for so long. No infrastructure work has been done.
Yep.
And right now, we have no money to put into them. And I mean, a lesson should have been learned about 2 years ago when they had an issue down at Lake Hill Farms where they had to spend $120,000 to do a repair in an emergency situation. That the same thing we're doing right now.
Literally, yeah, that example was followed to a T here in my 2025 budget. I'm allocating the 55 grand,
55 for Surrey.
for Surrey Meadows and all
Yeah,
that.
So we get that pump station up to where it's
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
be.
That's included in my budget.
Yeah, concern I have is that, the town has been negligent in having sufficient funds for the infrastructure.
Mhm.
And, I understand what we want to do this year, but we shouldn't be at the expense of reserves for the infrastructure. We should have adequate funds and reserves for that. So,
Well, what I'm trying to do is not touch our reserves as much as possible. That's why in this year's budget, I've only allocated $300,000 worth of our fund balances across the board. It's not in any of the specific accounts, but across the board to make up for some things. Specifically, $200,000 is coming out of the B fund, which is the most healthy fund balance accounts. That orange line right there that has about $1 million sitting in it. That is the only fund that I use that much in fund balance in order to help with the burden of this year's tax increase. Try to keep it as low as possible, but that only leaves about another $100,000 left over. I know $50,000 of that 100 is coming out straight from the Lake Hill Farms fund balance to pay for the water meter increases.
Yeah.
So I'm using very little fund balance this year to help with some of the burdens as much as possible. But I completely agree with Councilman Dysinger in building up our reserves for all of the accounts. But this, in my opinion, I did not want to tax a single cent more than I felt that I should have to pay for everything and keep everything running. We are facing a very tough year next year, and I do not want to hurt the residents more than I have to.
As long as we make sure we cover, any potential fuel increases, gas increases, electric.
We did. They were all accounted
We're
for.
all accounted for.
Yeah.
And there's a possibility we could save a little bit on each one
Well,
of
that's
those.
exactly how fund balance is created.
accrued.
Yeah, down there in the bottom, the public and the town board will find exactly how fund balance is created.
So question, Supervisor.
Sure.
Just, listen, this year do we know where we're going to finish up? Because we're talking about trying to build up fund balance now. If we're not going to really spend anything, except I think you said the B fund, right?
We're going to spend $200,000. At least this is in my tentative budget of the B fund, and another $100,000 is coming out of various other funds. I know 50 of that 100 is coming out of the Lake Hill Farms, the Lake Hill Farms Water District.
So we still have another county sales tax coming to us. Sales tax
Yes,
coming.
I spoke to the county executive. He did say multiple times over the phone to me that the sales, the bonus check is not going to be at nearly as high as previous years.
Well, even if the bonus check is half of what it's been previous years, I mean, we could put that away to try to build up some of the
Yeah,
fund balance
absolutely.
coming out of 2024.
Yep.
Is my comment, because I know there was, and you and I discussed this on that there is going to be some extra money, so we're going to be understating what our sales tax was, so we should get a little extra money.
In note, the bonus check, all the sales tax money has already been accounted for within the 2024 budget, which is part of why I believe that the 2024 revenues are overstated. That specific reason is that they already accounted for that bonus check within the 2024.
So you mean when the budget was done last year, we accounted for a bonus
You
check? We didn't even know what the bonus number
you
was.
accounted for
Yes.
The bonus check, you accounted for the 4 different, so the idea being that the revenues might not come in exactly where we want.
Okay, so now here's the $100 question. Since we looked into a crystal ball and we figured out what the bonus check was going to be for this year, does it look like at least we're going to hit the number? Or could this 2024 be worse?
We're gonna be a little.
Yeah, we're going to be shorter.
In your binders, each of you have a year, I did the projection of the year-end fund balance number and year-end cash number, so those didn't change. Those have been emailed to you and they're in your binders.
One thing I think we have as a positive coming up for next year's budget will be the payment for Knapp's View will be finished.
Yes,
That's a 300,000.
that will free up.
That'll free
definitely a
up
good amount.
$300,000.
We took that out of the 2025?
No, it's in there because we have to pay it.
We have,
No.
okay, we.
Yeah,
paid.
2026
Okay,
it won't be
All right,
in there.
20,
I'm sorry, next year's the last year.
okay.
And there's some other money that is going to be freed up next year, hopefully as well. But it's going to go right into other things that we need to pay, unfortunately. Yeah. So just for everybody's reference, at the bottom there is how fund balance is created. So just in case the public kind of wanted a quick overview of that. And my comptroller, my accounting department would hate me for saying it. But in layman's terms for the public, fund balance, if you hear us talking about fund balance, we're really talking about basically reserve accounts that we can dip into when necessary, but not always. He's already rubbing his eyes. It basically, for layman's terms, that's what that is.
But they're for individual districts. They can
Yes.
only be used within those districts.
Right,
Like
but-
Lakeville Farms, you're taking 50,000, but that's only going to reduce the taxes to that district.
Right. And
Nowhere else.
Yes, and to put him at ease, when we're talking about fund balance, we are not talking about cash on hand. We are talking about numbers on a page. It doesn't mean that we have that cash literally in our bank accounts at that time. Just means what we are owed or supposed to have in our accounts, in layman's terms. This is just to go along with that slide. It's this is exactly kind of the challenge that we have. We have increasing costs, appropriations every year for the most part, except for Highway Park Town. It looks like going into this last year, next year. But this is the problem when you appropriate fund balance to make up for increasing costs. Those increasing costs, very little of the time, never decrease. So you'll always have a gradual increase.
They never go.
If you plug in some money that you have from your reserves, you can keep on doing that until you run out of reserves. Those increases are still going to be there at the end of the day.
Oh,
So you're going to have to make up for that in taxes the next year and the next year and the next year and the
It's
next year.
scary looking through the budget. Everywhere you look for Social Security and medical stuff, everything went up by big percentage rates.
Yes, and
No, it's not
that's
small percentage.
that's
big
what government
percentages.
is. It's a personnel-driven business at the end of the day. Everything that we do here in the town of Chester, you have to have a person doing it, whether it's mowing the fields or running the clerk's office or accounting for the town or inspecting buildings or what have you. And every part of our municipal government, in every municipal government, it is all personnel driven. So the vast majority of our budgets are all going towards payroll and payroll burdens, meaning the taxes and the benefits that come with payroll. This is what you were asking about, Larry, is a greater breakdown in our A and B funds, if I'm correct, Neil? Yes. Right there, you will see about a third, again, exactly what I was just talking about a third, 31% of our A and B funds are made up of payroll, benefits, and taxes. Another third, or almost a third, 29%, is strictly made up of our police department. The police department expenses make up nearly a third of our budget here. And then
That's just payroll and contractual, I assume, right?
as far as I know, yes.
Yeah. Doesn't include the benefits.
That's
or-
every-
No, it does.
Except the benefits.
Except the benefits.
That's included in the other third.
No, I understand.
Your 0.4, your 0.1, and your 0.2.
Yeah, I
Whatever
understand.
put in,
Yep,
you
I
can-
understand.
Yep. So that is all in there. Those are 2/3 of the budget. Everything else is everything else. You have, court, clerk, utilities, insurance, debt, and legal, general operations, which is, everything that's not listed there, basically general operations. You will find things like the town supervisor's accounts, the town board accounts, the accounting department. Excuse me. The town assessor, the buildings line, etc. Basically everything else you don't see. The highway garage, you will see only 2%. The highway town-wide and part-town accounts are not in this chart. This is just the A and B fund. The highway garage part of A and B is literally just the salaries for our highway superintendent, our foreman, and Donna, basically.
So
And
basically
then
your
plus,
salaried employees,
I'm sorry?
basically your salaried employees.
With
Yeah.
administration.
Yeah, basically the top three there. And then also the literal maintenance that it takes to keep the garage up and running. But everything else that has to do with highway are in their own accounts. And then everything else here, it's all listed out for you. The departments and the payrolls for those departments are included in those sections of the pie chart there. Yep, that's about what I have to say here. The next slide is a fun slide. We just wanted to kind of add it in for levity. This is what a lot of people's taxes pay for in this town, especially with the recreational services that we have. We have all these senior trips, the senior picnic, the senior prom. We have the theater camp that we just did this last year. The camp trips that we did in lieu of the summer camp that we were supposed to have. We had, the holiday events, the movie nights, the touch truck, exercise programs for seniors. We had the free concert in the Performing Arts Center last year and years prior. This is what a lot of our taxes pay for in terms of recreational programs specifically. So I just kind of wanted to show. Also recreational basketball as well. That's to show the public kind of the fun things that your money goes toward. Water funds. This is a fun one. As you saw earlier, we are going down in our assessment for the water taxes, exactly, or around 37% to be exact. That has a lot to do with the standardized water rates that are going up from $0 in most cases to $10 per 1,000 gallons. The accounting department, like I said earlier, had made big strides in fixing the water funds, which ultimately led to better budgeting and money saved for the taxpayer. It was mismanaged and over budgeted in prior years, as we've seen. We are able to save a lot of money in our water funds specifically for a lot of those reasons. There are a lot of challenges to the water department. One challenge that we're going to go crack down on, hopefully next year, is that 1/4 of our revenue, if you look towards the bottom there, 24% of our water billings are being re-levied this year. This is a year after year issue that we find with our water department. With our water funds. Meaning, that the money that we should be collecting in 2024, we will not see until 2025 because it's being re-levied.
So it leaves your budget short for your water department.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And we can't have that. So that's why it is being, it's going to be on the next agenda to switch to a quarterly billing cycle instead of a biannually billing cycle. 4 times a year instead of 2 times a year. And we are going to be raising the late fee to 10%. I believe it's only 5% right now, or even less.
It's $5.
It's $5
$5.
right now, which is peanuts.
There's no incentive.
There's no incentive to pay your bill on time, and that's why we have about 1/4 of everybody paying their bill late and having it to be re-levied. So that's why we're going to increase the late fees to try to deter that from happening in the future. And ultimately, this will bring in the much needed funds, for our water department, for maintenance, for upgrades, etc., and for emergencies. We are going to need that money come a time when the worst happens. I heard some residents were surprised about the planned water meters that will be installed in our water districts. These are equipment purchases that you'll find all throughout the budget and any other budget that you have seen in the past. These are not things that you would normally have a public referendum on or a public hearing on, but I realize the public has never gotten a presentation like this or the amount of detail in previous budgets like we have this year. So I understand that it could have been missed or it comes as a surprise to some people. But just to correct the record and set it straight, in 2024's budget, which is this year, that was made last year by the previous budget officer and town board, this was the first year money was being budgeted for to install new cellular water meters in the Fieldcrest Water District. The plan is to install the water meters one district at a time every year until 2028, in which case we will be done with the upgrades. These meters and meters like them are being installed in all across the country, the state, and Orange County. Some specific examples that are close to home are the Village of Chester, the town of Monroe, the Village of Monroe, and the town of Wallkill. It's happening across the board. It saves people money. It saves people, the leaks. They won't, in the past, it might be a very long time before a leak is caught, and then people owe a lot of money to the water department. That shouldn't be a thing anymore with these new water meters, because it gives basically real-time data into what's going on in your home water system, and residents can actually download an app to see that themselves. Not only is it going to be watched by the water department at town hall with their central system, but the app will allow town residents to look over their water usages and catch leaks themselves if they want to. I think that's going to be a very good thing. It removes human error, these new water meters. It provides real-time water usage data, like I just said. And it will allow our water department to ultimately do their job a lot quicker and more efficient, which will allow them to deal with everything else that has to do with running the water department for the town of Chester much easier and quicker. Finally, just to dispel other rumors, these meters will be using the same type of signals that your phone or other home devices use to communicate with the water department's central system at town hall. It will send the signal 4 times a day, and it sits outside of your home. It is completely harmless. There is no evidence to back up any other claim of that I know of, that the town water department knows of, or as you just read or just heard from me, the other municipalities, our neighbors in Monroe and Chester and Wallkill have heard of. This would not be happening if it was actually harmful to residents. It's the same type of thing that your phone sends. It's the same type of signal that your phone sends out, which you use more often usually, and it's usually attached to your hip most of the time. So this is not harmful. The total cost to install meters for next year's plan in Lake Hill Farms is around $60,000. Fieldcrest was about $10,000, I want to say, give or take. Next year's Lake Hill Farms is a much larger water district, so it's about $60,000. But like I said earlier, we are going to be using $50,000 of fund balance from the Lake Hill Farms Water District to pay for those water meters. So in reality, we are only levying $10,000 more in taxes from that water district, from those residents in that water district to pay for the new system. So when you spread $10,000 across the board to all those residents, it's going to come out to be a very small increase in their levy next year. And then that, again, will go away the following year. This is only going to be a 1-year thing, each year for each water district. So just to dispel any other rumors, no one in any other water district or any other part of town will be paying for a cent of the cost that goes into upgrading these meters for each water district. Just to give people a heads up for future years, Walton Lake, Surrey Meadows, and finally Sugarloaf are on the schedules for years in the future, and that can range anywhere between $30,000 and $45,000 from our current estimates in terms of what the upgrade costs will be for those water districts. And of course, we will be looking to use the fund balance that we have in those water funds to, hopefully ease the burden of any costs that are associated with those upgrades, just like I have in my budget this year to do the same for Lake Hill Farms. If anybody has any reasons to be against these upgrades, they can write to the town board or show up to the 2025 budget hearings later this month or at the beginning of November. That's the appropriate time to try to convince the town board to fund or defund anything in the budget, not just the water meters. It could be, you can, make your concerns known to the town board on anything in the budget. And of course, you can find that online. And then finally, in the bottom right here, this kind of speaks to the water usages again. You can see that expenses are steadily climbing, along with revenues, kind of right along with it, but not as high. With the new water metered sales, the usage fees, you see that orange line, that's going to be drastically going up because we are going to institute water usages for all the water districts. And the property taxes are going to drastically decrease with that. And eventually we're going to want it to get basically strictly on a water usage fee model instead of assessed value. So it's more accurate and it's less taxes on the whole of these water districts. Next slide is Moodna, our sewer. Now here are here's the beginning of some of the money that we are going to have to kind of take a hit on this year and in future years. People asked why, the difference in the 2.2 million between the amount raised and the property, the tax cap. This sort of goes into it a little bit. The first two numbers here are strictly decided by the Moodna board. We have representation on that board from Councilman Courtney and Deputy Supervisor Becker, but they are not the only representation. It is a shared sewer district with the town of Monroe and the town of Blooming Grove, I believe, correct?
Village of Chester.
Village Chester.
But not Blooming Grove.
is a small part.
Yeah, Blooming Grove is a small part, and the Village of Chester is obviously included in the town of Chester. And all of those boards, representatives vote on the Moodna board. The Moodna budget, and that's how you get the first two numbers. Those were decided in that budget vote earlier on. I think it was back in September. Was that vote happened or August?
Last month.
Yeah, September. So you have about $952,000 about in operation and maintenance, and you have $34,000 in capital and equipment reserves. Now, the next number that you see there is exactly what it sounds like: unaccounted for liabilities. We owe the sewer district of Moodna this amount in equipment purchases and capital improvements that the town never paid for in the past. It was never budgeted
It's
for.
also emergency repairs also that
Right.
weren't budgeted.
Right. It was never budgeted for, like Deputy Supervisor Becker just stated. I'm budgeting for it this year. I'm including it in my tentative budget so we can just pay it off and not have to worry about it ever again. Hopefully, obviously emergencies pop up. But this is
Right now that amount was paid for out of fund balance in that budget. There's like 1.2 or 1.3 million
Right.
in that Moodna Basin thing, and we have to replace that
Right.
because this is our responsibility.
Yes. The reserves, the fourth line there, $11,000. It's the beginning of a reserve fund that I would like to build up in consultation with some of the members of the town board and our accounting department. This is in order, we need to start building this up in order to pay off the amount that we owe to Orange County for the creation of the Moodna district. In essence, they have we've had a bill from them for a long time. I don't know the full number off the top of my head, but they've never really come for that bill. It's been a kind of a game between Moodna.
No, it was the issue in the past was the county would send a bill to the town or to Moodna, but they would never give us a breakdown on exactly what the billing was for. So over the years, the town, the village, and the town of Monroe paid what they felt they owed, and that extra money that was supposed to be paid to the county was never put in a reserve fund. So, and the county's looking for that money now.
Yes.
And it went over many years. It's probably a 15, 20-year
Right.
issue.
So I don't want to, be caught with our pants down and have no money kind of stored away for this. I want to start building a reserve fund in anticipation that they will be coming for that amount owed.
They're looking for $3 million.
Exactly.
Between three
Between the whole
districts.
district. Yeah.
Between three of them, there's
Yeah.
$3 million.
So yeah, this is a penance for it, but a pittance for it. But again, it's something. We're in a very tough year. I can't squirrel away any more money than what you see here in terms of my opinion, at least. Finally, the last number there, 55K, is to fund, like I said earlier, the pump station at Surrey Meadows. We've been warned about that pump station and its quality and its
Yeah, the pumps are outdated. It's hard to get parts, and we don't want to get into a situation like we had at Lake Hill Farms. Where
Right.
We'd rather spend $55,000 than
instead of-
$120,000.
right.
And that falls on one district, so that really hurts.
Yes, and we don't want to again be caught with our pants down, like you just said in Lake Hill Farms. We've been warned about that pump station in the past, and no
Many
money
years.
has ever been budgeted towards it.
For many years, it's been warned.
Yes. So now, unfortunately, we want to be responsible in budgeting for it, so we make sure that we get ahead of it. And of course, that's going to hurt a little bit, but it's a necessary Band-Aid to rip off. And that makes up your total MUDA budget there. So that is that. For transparency purposes, I wanted to put this in here for the public to know about. I'm sorry, before I get on, are those some comments there, Michelle?
I do. Lydia Quadros, please clarify that you are installing new water meters outside of the house, not rewiring the existing water meter in the basement.
It's a new register that gets added to the meter. The old register comes off, the new register goes on.
Yes.
But aren't the meters inside the house?
The meters are inside the house, so they have to have access. They have to have access into the house for the most part to change the register on the meter.
Got it. I was told some of them were outside of the house.
I thought it was to the reader, not the
Oh,
reader.
maybe it is the reader, but it may be the register too if it's outdated. I know in Sugarloaf, I think those meters have never been changed.
Lydia, why don't you email that question to the town board so I can have the water department reach out to you specifically about that? And are there other comments there?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. All right. So in the interest of transparency, I want to add this in here so the public understands some of the challenges that we're facing financially with two of our most used buildings that we have here in town. First, you will see Sugarloaf Performing Arts Center. It was stated by previous, no longer here officials of the town that we had been breaking even or even in the black or supposedly close to being in the black, with our Sugarloaf Performing Arts Center. That was grossly misleading. We have been in the red and we are not projected to be out of the red if the current situation stands. To give people more of a detail on this, around $256,000 was lost in 2023 for the Performing Arts Center when you account for all of the expenses that come with running that building. Debts, interest, operating and maintenance costs, your salary, what have you. 2024, it's projected that we will be losing a little under $240,000. And then in 2025, it's projected that we are going to be losing around $220,000. This, to me, this is all new info. This is something that we just basically got a couple weeks ago from our town comptroller and our accounting department. We were finally able to get more accurate numbers after almost a year of accounting work that it was obviously not focused on the Sugarloaf Performing Arts Center, we had to really clean up a lot in the accounting of the town. This finally came out with a lot of the progress that was made with the accounting of the town. We were able to get this information just a couple weeks ago. And I wanted to add it here in this budget presentation so you understand just how much the town is subsidizing this building that we have, the Sugarloaf Performing Arts Center. This is all news to us here on this current town board. And we, obviously very surprised about it. And we want to figure out how to fix that in the future. I personally am not willing I'm personally willing to subsidize the Performing Arts Center to a degree, but not nearly to this amount. This is not a pill that I'm willing to swallow, and I do not think that the public should be swallowing in the near future.
And
Brandon, I know that we've been looking at the rates for the Sugarloaf
Yes.
Performing Arts Center. When is that going to be completed?
So-
And would we make a change for 25 that could possibly reduce the amount of?
The answer is yes. Well, the answer to your second part of that question is yes. We are looking to make a change to the fee schedule. The advisory board that I had set up with you guys has been looking into that for the last 2 months. Unfortunately, to answer your first part of the question, the timeline is being pushed back a little bit further with the news, with this new news. Now that this information is available, and I made it available to the advisory board just last week, this kind of changes their way of thinking about things. They were going at it thinking that we were at a certain place financially speaking, but now that they understand the actual situation, they are going to be having more meetings to discuss what the fee schedule should be based on the situation that we're in. They also don't feel as though this is appropriate, and I know they're working closely with Councilman Courtney on that, and our staff at the Performing Arts Center, and in consultation with Diamond Green Media, who obviously has a stake in the Performing Arts Center.
And if I could I want to just piggyback, Supervisor. Now, when I know back in January, February, I gave preliminary numbers.
Yes,
So I do want to talk to that. They were very preliminary numbers.
and we stated that at the time.
Yep. No, I know I didn't have all the pieces to the puzzle. I had what I had. I know Neil worked diligently to get where we are today. So, I just want to be clear on that because I could hear, Courtney said, we were 12,000 to the good. Well, I was working on information that I had at that point. Everything was upside down in the accounting department. And,
Well,
now
honestly,
we
to
finally
only be 12,000 in the black was kind of like
it's not a good spot either.
No, it was kind of a warning. Is this really where we want to be at either? I personally wouldn't be.
And to Larry's comment on the fee schedules, the fee schedule is will adjust some of this. That's a staggering number.
Yeah,
I don't see
You're not
I
gonna
don't see
get
a
it in
fee
fees.
schedule making up $100,000 of that shortfall
Absolutely
in any way,
not.
shape, or form.
And
So the
scary
point-
part of this is not taking into account building maintenance
no, it is. It is.
to a certain degree.
Yeah,
When
to
you're
To a
talking,
limited amount.
It's not taking into account.
We used ARPA money to the tune of 50 or 60,000 for a water line. That didn't take into account all the upgrades needed in the sprinkler
Right.
system room. And so
the capital
water supply.
projects that come
capital
with it.
projects
Yes,
to come with
that's what.
it.
Yeah.
So
You can't own a building and live on a whim and a prayer, hoping nothing happens. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and
that's
that's kind of
that's why I led with saying that it's been grossly misleading in the past because this is abysmal to my opinion, and that's why along with the fee schedule, we have to look at long-term plans for this building and what should the town be doing about this, because I personally don't believe the residents should be in a hole like this year after year after year, even if it's going down a little bit, which is great to see. But again, a win and a prayer. Who knows what the next year is going to bring in the next year?
I think, working on the fees has been better part of this year. I respectfully request that we set a deadline for a recommendation from the committee, and I'd like
Well-
to see that within another 3 or 4 weeks.
They've only actually been working on it for about 2 months, not the better part of a year.
Okay,
Yeah.
but even so, even 2 or 3 months, I think is a fair amount of time. Based on the situation, I'm requesting that they provide their recommendation.
It
by
would
the end
it
of November.
was just at the precipice of releasing an advisory opinion to the town board, literally within last week or this week. But then again, we just gave them the new news, so now they're looking at it with a different lens. So this fee schedule change isn't going to really take effect until 2025 anyway. Obviously, I want it
Yeah.
as soon as possible, but I don't want to rush them and to make a judgment that they're not ready to make. But obviously, I will stress to them the need, and they understand the need clearly. I already know that by talking to their chairman, Jeff Zahn, the need for a fee schedule advisory opinion to us at some
Okay.
point, because we're not just going to take their advisory opinion. We obviously have to deliberate on it. Like, I'm sure you guys want to, look it over and do your own research. So
Larry, just so you have some background on that, the last advisory meeting we had, I broke the news to them on this number, so it kind of warped into a completely different conversation. And then obviously having Matt there, because now he's more than 50% of our rentals, and hearing his feedback kind of between the two kind of threw them into a little bit of a tizzy. I think they're, like I said, I think the last meeting, I think they're rounding third base with a number, but the number is won't even do a dent to what.
The thing is, people need deadlines. They don't have deadlines. They keep
No,
dragging.
I get it, but they were just throwing a curveball. I mean, you don't want them to move forward with the old number.
Right.
So they just got that new number the last meeting we had, because
Which was last week.
I gave it to them.
Moving on.
Yeah, so that is the Performing Arts Center, and then again, we have another building that is kind of in a hole too. But that is a little bit of a different story. We have the Senior Recreation Center here, who is trending in the opposite direction, actually, which is unfortunate. $173,000 in the hole in 2023. $154,000. Or no, I'm sorry, $184,000 in the hole in 2024, and then 188 projected in 2025. So it's a little different. It's less of a kind of surprise because we actually don't have any revenues right now from the senior center. We have no fee schedule to rent out the senior center. We have no model of revenue generating uses of the senior center. This is something that I think needs to change immediately. It's nice to have it. It's nice to give it to our seniors especially, but the wider community in general for a lot of different events and a lot of different meetings. But this, unfortunately, we need to look at what's good long-term for the health, the financial health of the town. I don't believe that this is good for the long-term financial health of the town. Even if it's a fraction of this hole that we are in, it is better than nothing.
So
To create a fee schedule to get some rentals in there and get some revenue.
I agree, but just I guess to the controller, and you might know the supervisor. So 101,000 of that, almost 102,000, is the bond and the interest. So when does that come due? When are we done with that?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Off the top of my head.
It's-
I can look it up for you.
It's
Yeah,
a
if you
fairly
just-
new
If you could
building.
just send me an email.
It's only
I
like
think
10 years old,
didn't we
right?
redo the
About
bond
10
at one
years old.
point when we bought the Performing Arts Center?
It's at the end of the 2010s, I believe it was constructed, correct?
Yeah, it's probably, I don't know.
I don't know if that was folded into,
Yeah, if you could find out when it's
but they
done.
are
So
long-term.
They're long-term bonds.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think we're.
They're on the books for a
They're not
while.
going
Like
away
20,
tomorrow.
30s.
are they really?
That's why. That's why I was thinking of when it was built. It wasn't. It's probably only 6 years old. 7
Less
years
than
old?
10, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
Yeah, six.
Look at that. Not a good guess.
the debt is 100,000. It's the cost of building the building and the interest. I mean, we just got to figure out how to minimize that. I mean, the town decided to build a senior center. We're not, I don't think we're looking to say we're not going to have a senior center no more. But I think to your point, we can get creative with trying to reduce that number.
Absolutely. Other towns do it. I know there might be some gripes about, having more time dedicated to rentals that are not usually what we currently have in our senior center being used for. But we have to think about the financial health of the town as a whole, not just, the convenience of a few. So we really need to look at how we can, like Councilman Courtney was saying, get creative and try to make some of that money back. We really do, in my opinion, especially with the financial situation that we're in.
Agreed.
And then finally, you have the last few slides here. This is basically a summary of all the accounts that we have, the large accounts that we have, the overview accounts, basically. Your general part-town highway, water, sewer, drainage, garbage, and ambulance. All the way to the right is a good way to see just how we are kind of budgeting as opposed to last year. General, and then finally in the middle, right before I get into all this, in the middle, less 2024 budgeted fund balance. This is the over $1 million of fund balance that was budgeted by the previous budget officer for 2024. You have all those numbers there that we now have to make up for. We have to, the $400,000 that was used by reserves, that doesn't just go away this year. We have to now make up for that and account for additional costs on top of those $400,000 that was probably never going to go away. Excuse me. So we have about a 7% increase in general, negative 2%, decrease in part town, a 14% decrease in townwide for highway, a 6% increase for part town highway, negative 1% decrease for water. And you see how that, the water, the usage rates came in. It would be more if less fund balance probably wasn't spent last year. 37% increase for the sewer. You saw the breakdown from the Munda budget there. A gigantic decrease. It's not even worth mentioning. For the drainage districts, I already said that we're using fund balance this year to pay it off. Pay off the costs that are associated because it's such a small amount. And the garbage districts. This garbage district increase really does also account for the increase of over our cap, our levy cap. Sorry, our budget cap. We are locked into a 5-year garbage contract that was signed last year. Every year, this garbage contract increases every year for the next 5 years. Well, 4 years now. The next increase is $201,000. After that, it keeps on going up and up and up for the next 4 years. So that is a gigantic budget challenge that we have to face here in the town of Chester. Unfortunately, we were kind of, and I was, Councilman Courtney, Councilman Artisana, and I were all on the previous town board. We did put out an RFP. I do remember. We only had one response. We are basically dealing with a monopoly situation here in Orange County.
Supervisor, I also think that a part of that increase was the anticipation of the greens coming online too.
Yes,
So
that was included.
that's for 400 homes. So that's, that, I don't know if that number, once you get once they're taxed on that, that number should, I think, would stabilize.
Hopefully. We'll see. I always plan for the worst and hope
No,
for the best.
I don't plan on, I'm just saying, I think it should. I mean, I don't know. I don't.
But you have to realize too, when the previous contract was signed, the cost was like $15 per month for garbage service, garbage and recycling, which was basically free.
Yeah.
They were losing money.
Yeah.
At
We were
first
in a
they
long-term,
weren't, but over that period, they were losing money.
we were locked into a previous long-term contract.
Yes.
It had like another 5 years, I think it was.
It was
COVID hit, and all
Right.
the extra cost hit them. And
So we got hit with a much, much worse long-term contract that we did not get any other sorts of bids for, unfortunately. And even this year, I basically begged and pleaded with IWS to make to just increase the cost this year and make it flat throughout the 5 years instead of gradually increasing. I felt like that was going to be, I think, better for the residents to kind of just get used to just one number every year instead of having to get increases every year. But they denied me because we already had signed contracts. So I tried. We're locked into a contract. There is nothing I can do about that number. And then finally, the biggest, increase that takes us way over the cap is the 1.2 million for ambulance. Obviously, now that people kind of have their hands on the budget, they will look at it and say, my taxes are going to go up. That's absolutely right. They're going to say, is this the best year for an ambulance? And I'm going to say every time, every year is a good year for an ambulance. This is the difference between people's, this is the difference between life and death. I think just this last weekend, we had a football player waiting on the field over half an hour for an ambulance to come. That's unacceptable to me. That's not the only, large response time story that I've gotten, in the town of Chester. It's all unacceptable to me, and we are a second away from a tragedy, literally every second.
We had another incident in the last 10 days where an elderly person almost bled out, and the PD had to put on a tourniquet, which
Right.
usually that's not basic life support.
Nope.
And that ambulance took a half hour. So I think I think this board agrees there has to be an ambulance service in place. I would say today we're probably not where we need to be as far as a cohesive group and how we're going to go there, but I think everyone's doing their due diligence to educate themselves so we can make the best possible decision for the residents.
Yep. And that number, that 1.22, that covers the proposals we have in front of us, I believe, the 3 proposals. But Wayanda has gone with a town-run department for their EMS, and they are already budgeting for a smaller budget for their tax district in 2025. So they are proof of concept that if you go with a town-run department, the tax amount can go down after year 1. With the other 2 contracts, the other 2 proposals that we have in front of us, Empress is promising us that it will be going up exponentially every year, 5%, and then 8% in year 3. Every year it's going to go up. And Blooming Grove, I can't imagine that costs are going to magically go down for them. They haven't promised us tax increases, but they haven't said that it's going to go down, and I can't imagine that they're going to say it's going to go down ever. So I've made the case time and time again. I really do think that we need to go with a town-run department, not only because we'll have control, but also the financial situation of the town. I think it's the most financially responsible thing to do, especially with the evidence that we have that number, that 1.22 number, can go down over time if we do it right. But this as a whole kind of tells you exactly where your money is going. The increase and decreases between last year and this year, and so on, and all the fund balance that was used just last year in 2024 that we now have to make up for, and that goes towards our tax cap. So that is the budget. The last slide here are just my personal, goals for next year that I've included in the budget. The EMS obviously is number 1. I've included in my budget a 9 to 5 optional summer camp. That's something, we did not have the sign up last year or this year, 2024. And that was one of the biggest complaints, was that it didn't extend to around 5 p.m. I've budgeted for a camp that does that this year. It's up to the public to be able to, sign up for it and, prove that we can make it work with the residents. And we're obviously going to do our best to get the word out on it. And then finally, I've also included monies for theater and film camps, which I believe are net zero. Those two camps are net zero, so no one is getting taxed more than the revenue will come to balance that out. The summer camp that I am budgeting for, the regular summer camp, I actually am subsidizing, I believe, with around $7,000 to $10,000, I believe, in my budget. So, I figured we have a lot of programs in this town that directly subsidize senior, recreational activities. The summer camp has historically been a net zero item. I think it's only fair to start subsidizing a little bit for the kids. I think we need to spread the love. And it's a very small amount. It's only around $7,000 that are going to come out of taxes to make the camp happen. But in my opinion, this is kind of the last time I would like to, really push for a summer camp and see if the public will be willing to make it work with us. We need to have people sign up for it to make it work. But we did have an amazing and successful theater camp that we're going to build on this year. I gave them we're budgeting for a larger budget, and we're going to expand into a separate film camp hopefully this year. Again, both net zero items. So the revenue balances it out. And this is something that I think we could be using, for our Performing Arts Center, especially. The Friendly Visitor Program, Jewish Family Services, again, a very, very small amount of the budget, just $7,500, to upgrade the services that our seniors can experience here in town. This is a program that will have volunteers, pair with seniors in town and be able to pick up their medication, their groceries, take them to appointments, what have you. This is successful in a lot of other municipalities throughout Orange County, and I think that we should spend a little bit to see if they can make it worth it to have this program here in Orange County. I'm sorry, in Chester.
Supervisor, we're going to head out to the
Budget for the
this
fire
is the last slide
department.
anyway. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to sit down with you guys, with Neil, our comptroller, to go over any concerns or questions. And if you have requests for, to finally make a change to the tentative to birth the preliminary, just email me and I'll get it on an agenda.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right. So that's the Friendly Visitor Program. They did have a $10,000 contract that they wanted us to sign for next year. I was able to negotiate down to $7,500. So personally, I think it's a very small but very mighty investment towards helping our seniors, especially those who are less mobile and less capable of taking care of themselves. And then finally, the last two are more abstract. They're not specifics. I just want to make sure that we are being responsible with our fund balance. We're responsible with our financials in general. We need to focus on the needs and not the wants. And we need to keep taxes as low as possible in such a tough year that we are going to be facing next year. Any questions?
No questions. I think you were very clear through the whole process. I do want to set up a couple hours with you, Mr. Controller, to go through my Bible here. So I'll get
You might need a full day.
all of it takes a whole day. I'm good. Yeah, I'll get a hold of you in the next day or two. We'll set up something.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I see some comments there. I'm sorry, Councilman Artisana, do you have anything? You're good? There's a comment there?
Lydia Quadros, what is the total percent of tax increase for 2025?
I don't have a number. That's not a number that I can give you. It depends on where you live. So your tax increase is going to be different than somebody who does not live in a water district like you live in, or a special sewer district, or what have you. So I can't in good conscience give you a number, an increase, in taxes, because everybody's assessed differently. What I did do in this presentation was show you during the levy, the slide. This slide, at the bottom here, you see your tax rates that are going up for each of the, three major, accounts that we have: general, part, town, and highway. Use this information to kind of gauge for yourself what is going to be your tax increase. Obviously, not everybody is an accountant and can work out municipal accounting. Call the town assessor's office. They should be able to show you or tell you a guesstimated number based off of what they are seeing in the tentative budget of what your potential increase will be. Obviously, this will change. This is subject to change with the preliminary and then finally the final budgets. So that number might be different, but you can figure out what the increase will be from my tentative budget by calling the town assessor and saying, just asking that question. Really, they should be able to help you somewhat.
And again, Lydia Quadros, how much more above the 2% cap will tax increase be?
So I'm just so this doesn't pertain to your tax increase, this number. This is just the tax cap percentage increase. The difference between 13.5 and about 11.2 or 0.3 is around $2.2 million. That represents about 19% over the tax cap. But that does not correlate to what your tax increase is. Those are two different numbers. Out of that 19% of the tax cap, increase over the tax cap, 9% is straight from the, it is straight from the ambulance tax district. So that's about 9%. Another 7%, I'm sorry, I mixed that up. 9% is from the over $1 million in fund balance that was to be made up for this year that we now have to make up for. That's about 9% of that 19 for going over the tax cap this next year. Another 7-ish% or 8% is the ambulance tax district, which I believe is absolutely and utterly necessary for the health and well-being of our residents. And then finally, around 2 to 3% is just actual budgeting cost increases. So in any other year, if you were to take out the amount of fund balance that was budgeted for by the previous town budget officer, and if you were to take out the ambulance tax district, if you did not have those two things exist, we would actually be within 2 to 3%, which is where the tax cap usually is, which I think is an incredible thing that that I and the accounting department was able to do with this tentative budget. You saw at the end there a bunch of the increases and decreases with all of the lines there. So we were able to do our best to kind of tighten our belts. I know the town clerk is sitting right there. I was nickel and diming everybody. She had called about a $500 item, and I told her she can't have it. So I was really nickel and diming literally everyone I could in terms of all these budget requests from all the town departments, as much as I could possibly do to keep your taxes as low as possible. Given the information that I knew we were going to have a large deficit to make up for because of the fund balance that was budgeted for this year, and also the deficit that's going to now come from the ambulance tax district. So I had that in the back of my head the whole time, and that's why I was nickel and diming everybody's budget requests from our town departments. But the 19% is what we were at over the tax cap. 9 of that 19 is the fund balance that we're making up for. Another 7 or 8 is the ambulance, and another 2 to 3 is the actual budget. Our regular budget costs going up. Go ahead.
Lydia Quadros, 19% tax increase?
No,
Does the state need to approve this increase?
that is not what that is. It is not a tax increase. That is 19% over the tax cap. The tax cap is that's the number that we're given by the state comptroller, basically, and also our internal calculations of what we should be, the maximum that we should be raising property taxes, our levy for. We are going 19% over what that suggested number is, which is around $11.3 million. We are going up to $13.5 million. That represents a 19% difference between those two numbers. That is not what your tax increase is going to be. Your tax increase is specific to your assessed value, your assessed property value, and the special districts that you live in. That is not a number that I can give to you. You need to go to the town assessor to figure out what that possibly could be, or after November 20th, what that will be, because at November 20th, the final budget needs to be approved. Once that final budget is approved, then you will know for certain what your tax increase will be by going to the town assessor, and you can get a jump, you can mentally prepare yourself for what your tax bill will be next year. Is that another comment I just saw come in? No? If you have any other questions about that, Lydia or anyone else, please feel free to call my office so I can talk to you about it. And I can walk you through the budget myself. I can make time with the comptroller to walk through it ourselves. Any resident, I'm offering that. I'm opening that offer up to. I don't believe in my 2 years or any other year before my time as a councilman, supervisor has made a presentation like this, as far as I know. As at least in my 2 years of experience as a councilman, I'm opening up my office to every resident to come in and speak to me and sit down and look at the numbers themselves as to the challenges and the increases and decreases that I'm dealing with and the town board is dealing with. We've had a public, budget workshop, which was streamed. That was not done in previous years. So everybody had the opportunity to look at the budget workshops where the town departments came to the town board and asked for their requests. We will have other budget workshops that will be streamed and live and public for everybody to see. We are trying to make this the most interactive and transparent budget in the history of Chester. I think we're doing a pretty good job of that so far. So please, if you have questions, if you have concerns, come to me. Come to the town board meetings. Come to the budget workshops. Have at it. We are here to help. We are here to give you the information and to take your suggestions. If you have suggestions on how we can save more money or we can make this budget better, I am all ears because we are dealing with a lot of challenges and it's a tough year next year. Any other comments? Anything from the press?
What's Park Town mean?
Part town is literally the words part town. It has not. So we have a general fund, A fund, and a part town fund, the B fund. General fund includes costs that have to do with the town as a whole, which includes the village. Part town is just costs for just the parts of town. That does not include the village.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Forgot this was my last slide here. This is the last slide. So I did, like I said, make a promise to be as transparent as possible and to make the budget more detailed. I think we are at the start of that. Our accounting department really did do a good job of fleshing out the accounts and really adding in a lot of depth to the budget binders that you all have. I think we'll be making a lot more of that budget binder public very soon, so people can learn more about what went into the making of the tentative budget. But the tentative budget is already posted online for everybody to see. So thank you to everyone that came out tonight, whether it's in person or virtual. And again, if anybody has any questions or concerns, come to me. I'm all ears. Thank you. All right. Too, but you can also call me tomorrow if you want, or come into the office. And then, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.